Am I the a-hole for frightening my nephew and making him traumatized for life? I had a cookout at my place on the 4th, but my 13-year-old daughter's Switch goes missing. I contacted family members, and my wife's sister, Kara, said my daughter gave it as a gift to her 6-year-old son, Stevie, for his upcoming birthday. I asked my daughter, and she said it wasn't true. She let Stevie use it so they could all play Mario Kart together, and it went missing after the cookout. My daughter is upset, and I call Kara back, who insists that the Switch is now Stevie's, and my daughter is too old to play anyways or will outgrow it soon, and it was a gift to Stevie. She calls my daughter an Indian giver. After this, I contacted my uncle, who is a police officer, and he watches Kara's house, and a few of his friends go over and threaten to arrest Steve and Kara over stolen property. Kara reluctantly gives it back after an incident with the officer that she could have been arrested for. They warned Stevie that next time he steals, both him and his mom will go to jail, then let my sister-in-law go without incident. Sister-in-law says Stevie has been crying non-stop and having issues sleeping because he doesn't want to go to jail, and blaming me and my family for traumatizing her son. My response might have been heartless because it was, I guess he'll never steal again. And Kara thinks he'll be traumatized for life for making a big deal over his stupid game. Now for the top comments. Your sister-in-law got caught stealing and is trying to deflect by telling you her son is traumatized. She thought you would just back down and let her steal from your daughter. Not the a-hole. So you think the 6-year-old is secretly doing just fine after an honest-to-God police officer came to his house and told him that he was going to take him and his mom to jail? He's 6. It was his mom that turned a little kid moment of taking something you like into genuine theft. Hope he didn't traumatize the kid. The sister-in-law did by being a thief who was justifiably visited by the police. It sounds like sister-in-law also did something verging on arrestable, based on how Opie describes it. I suspect that was actually what may have traumatized the kid. I'm never the first to defend cops. But in a situation like this, where it's some family member's goofy dispute with a kid involved, no cop is busting down the door going full code. It's, now listen kiddo, stealing is bad. It's why I have this job. Please don't make me do paperwork. They can be real pricks, but they are still people, not ghouls. Sister-in-law going bonkers though, will make cops do as cops do. Unexpected situations are where cops do notably poorly. Not the a-hole. Stevie has bigger problems, like having a mother who likes to steal. Completely agreed. His mom is something else. I think people are glossing over that apparently there was an incident that Kara instigated with the officer that she could have gotten arrested for. Listen, sending the cops after a 6-year-old is nuts, but that's literally all Kara's fault. She refused to return it and instead insulted Opie's kid. If Opie had tried to retrieve it himself, he could have been arrested for trespassing or assault if he tried to go inside a house to get it. Kara reacted so belligerently to the officers that it could have ended in like actual jail time for her, other than the theft, and still was very reluctant. And only the threat of imminent arrest made her cough it up. She stole the Switch by enabling her son keeping it. Maybe she told him to take it. So it's actually appropriate to call the cops on someone who robs you. Again, what else was Opie supposed to do at that point? Once someone says, yeah, I have your stuff. No, I won't return it. Pound sand, loser. It actually is police time, sorry. Yes, it was the nuclear option and completely over the top, and that's all in Kara for taking it there. She really only has herself to blame. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making sister-in-law / her husband so uncomfortable that they left without eating? I'm 30 female and a mom of 4. I'm a doctor and my husband is a firefighter. Every year, my husband and I host a family barbecue the weekend after the 4th. Most of us are essential workers, so we can't celebrate on the 4th. My sister-in-law, a police dispatcher, and her husband, unemployed and has been for 2 years, have always been a bit of an annoyance to me personally. Her husband is an old-school Southern hillbilly who wears the man of the house title without earning it, as in thinking women and children are beneath him, and practically snaps his fingers at his wife to be doted on. Whatever, just not my cup of tea. My sister-in-law doesn't seem to mind. They are childless, but they do have 3 dogs that they bring everywhere with them. Well, we get the barbecue going and whatever, and everything is going fine, surprisingly. Usually by this time, sister-in-law and her husband are diving off into an argument about who are you voting for? At this point, they were being tame, thank God. But then dinner is ready, and I call on all the kids to come get in a line so I can serve them. Sister-in-law immediately goes running over to get to the front of the line for a plate for her husband, per usual, as they live in this 50s-style men should eat first attitude. I told her to go sit down and he would be served after the children have eaten. This is an argument every single year. She scoffs at me and walks off, slamming herself on a chair and crossing her arms as her husband is shaking his head. I ignore it. I don't care about offending them anymore. But then their unruly dogs are trying to take food off the kids' plates. So I yell at the dogs and then turn to my sister-in-law and her husband and say, get your dogs away from the kids now, or they can go sit their butts in the car and wait for you there. You will not be bringing them next year. My sister-in-law throws her plate across the table, calls for her dogs and goes to the vehicle to, I assume, put them up. But then she comes back and yells at her husband to, let's freaking go. We obviously aren't welcome here. Mother-in-law tries to protest, but I say, no, let them leave. Tired of dealing with this every freaking year. And yell to them, don't bother coming back. My husband is backing me 100%. Mother-in-law, not so much. She says I'm ridiculous for embarrassing them and making them feel unwelcome every year. Edited to add, they're fully aware that kids eat first in my house. I shouldn't have to repeat this every single year. As for the dogs, I told them they were only welcome here if they were leashed and away from all the food. They brought the leashes, but let their dogs roam with the leashes still on them as soon as they got their plates. Their leashes were attached while diving into the children's dishes. As for me being a doctor and a mom of 4, because apparently people can't fathom this, I graduated at 17, went to college at 18. I worked through each pregnancy while attending mostly online college and taking time off for maternity leave. I had my doctorate by the time I was 28. Not a-hole. They are terrible guests. Were. Now they're probably banned from OP's house. Not a-hole. They seemed shocked that they were expected to follow very reasonable and totally predictable norms at your gatherings. They don't need to come then. Seems just right. Mother-in-law can host them instead if she wants to. Not a-hole. Why do people always think that their dogs are welcome with them everywhere they go? Not all of us want to put up with your slobbering, smelly balls of allergies. Keep the dogs at home, or don't come at all. Especially if the dogs will be around kids and food. I won't tolerate dogs that jump or lunge for food, especially from kids. That's how someone gets bitten or knocked over. Not a-hole. Exactly. Although I could see some better ways this could have been handled. It does seem reasonable to just not invite them if they're constantly being disrespectful and disruptive. If you don't want to invite them to anything in the future, I'd probably include, in writing, the rules of your event. Guests will be humans only. Please leave all pets at home. And house rules are that children eat first before any adults. That gives you an easier ground to kick them out if they mess around. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law to maybe stop eating so much? My sister-in-law, 43 female, and her kid, 12 female, moved in with us. My husband, myself, and our 3 kids, 2 months ago. She's going through a divorce, and her ex took everything. The kid is not his, and a prenup was signed. We told her to just worry about her own food, as I didn't like the idea of eating together due to their history with food. I don't know how to put it nicely, so I guess I will go blunt. Her and her kid never stop eating. They both have severe health issues, as both of them combined are over 600 pounds and live a fat, positive life. Now it's none of my business, but when it comes to the kid, it's messed up. I don't care what anyone says. When a 12-year-old is pushing 220 pounds and has a doctor breathing down your neck, it's time for a change versus pushing body positivity. The kid is a great girl, but just her by herself could easily eat enough to feed 4 grown men who haven't eaten all day. So that was my stipulation, that they buy their own food and cook everything separate. I even cleaned out our entire pantry to give them for their own food space. Well, my kids and I needed a break and took off for a week to a resort. My husband didn't want to go, as he didn't want to leave them in our home unattended, but encouraged us to get out of here because we were pretty fed up with the company. I just spent almost $400 on food prior to leaving, so our freezer was full and so was our cupboards. This would feed us, me, husband, kids, for easily 2 weeks. Well, I got home last night and all of the food is gone. Every single bit of it. I know for a fact it wasn't my husband. He works 14 to 16-hour days and usually buys takeout on his way home when I'm not there, so he can just go to sleep when he gets back. I look into my sister-in-law's pantry and all her food is gone too, which was full when I left. I immediately question it, and my sister-in-law apologizes and said her and her kid got hungry and her legs hurt too much to drive to the store. I said, why the heck didn't you just get grocery delivery? And she said, I didn't think you would mind. So I snapped and said, obviously I freaking mind. You and your kid just ate well over $800 worth of food in a freaking week. $400 of it being mine, which you will be reimbursing me for. Maybe stop eating so damn much. And I walk off. Now she's mad at me and crying wolf to anyone who will listen for me fat shaming her and her kid. Now for the top comments. I'm gonna get downvote to hell, but I don't care. Not a-hole. Your sister-in-law is abusing her child. Yes, she has a problem, but she is also responsible for her and for her child. So she needs to start doing something, and stop eating so damn much would be a good option. I agree wholeheartedly. It's dangerous for a child to be that size. The sister-in-law and her child probably should get counseling to see why they overeat. It could be a plethora of reasons why. OP is not a-hole. I'd be upset too. Groceries are so expensive nowadays. Fat shaming needs to come back into vogue for situations like this. Wow, what she's doing to herself is bad, but her kid though? That's abuse. On your dime. No, just no. Not a-hole, OP. Not a-hole. I would be freaking mad about this. Groceries are expensive AF right now, and that's just very inconsiderate. She could have at least replenished everything but decided to give you some BS excuse. Also, what she's doing to her kid is abuse. Plain and simple. When I was in grad school, my housemates would leave for the weekend and I'd get high and eat all her snacks. I'd go to the store before she got back and replace all and more. I'd always text her saying I was eating her stash and would replace them. Even if she had like 2 Oreos left, I'd buy a whole new pack for her. Not a-hole. Your sister-in-law literally stole from your family because she felt entitled to. Quite frankly, either she gives you the money or she finds another place to live. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not taking in my nephew while my brother is in prison? For background, I have an older brother, Mark, and both our parents have sadly passed. Mark has a son, Nick, who's 8 years old. Mom is not present. We have no other family since we come from a long line of small family trees. Mark and I keep in touch, but we are by no means close. I also have my wonderful husband, Jax. Jax and I both make quite good money and could potentially both retire now if we wanted. We are, however, both passionate about the career projects we are each working on. We have also chosen to be child-free, and he had a snip some years ago. We have quite a nice house and a place we love that we share with our 4 dogs. Mark has over the years had different issues with money, drug issues, and running with the wrong crowd. I've paid off some of his debt, around $60,000, over the years to keep him afloat, plus arranged for help with drug issues. We live in different ends of the country, however, and I have no real relationship with him nor his son. As far as I'm aware, he has little to no real support system, but since he's highly destructive, I've chosen to keep my distance. However, Mark recently reached out to let me know he's going to prison for 7+ years, and he would be sending a nephew out to stay with me. I've heard nothing about this, and was completely taken aback. I haven't heard from Mark in over a year. I let him know that he could do no such thing, and I couldn't just take nephew in for years on end. However, nephew is set to go into foster care if Mark can't find someone to take him. I understand his horrible predicament, but Jax and I have no desire to bring a child into our care, and we feel royally unfit to care for this child. Mark remarked we both have more than enough time, money, and space to care for a child and gave me great grief for saying no. I offered full financial aid for nephew's expenses if Mark could find someone else trusted to take him in, but he said there's no one else willing in his life. I felt my offer was more than fair, and my heart breaks for their situation, especially my nephew, but I simply cannot provide him a good life, a place where he is wholeheartedly desired. These are exactly the same reasons husband and I are child-free, and why I declined being nephew's godmother back when he was born. Mark's lawyer has, however, contacted us along with Mark, continuously pressuring us to take him in. Apparently, nephew is also neurodivergent and quite a handful, and Mark's lawyer suspects he won't have success in foster placements. The things said about me are, however, very harsh and hurtful, and I'm wondering if I'm actually directly in the wrong here? Not a-hole. That's an outrageous demand on your brother's part, not to mention the lawyer. Even if the kid wasn't likely to be an unmanageable disaster, why in the world would you want to put up with it? Not your problem, to put it mildly. I am irate at how much Mark has failed his son, and then he tries to somehow make it out to be OP's fault? She has no obligation to put her life on pause, and Mark should have done everything in his power to get his act together for his son. Was thinking this, adding to the fact that Mark is not seemingly on good terms with OP either, doesn't sound great. Avoiding godmother status as well should already be a statement that she's not interested in the literal situation being presented to her. I feel awful for the kid because he's not at all responsible for any of this. Shame on Mark for just shoving his failure into his sister. I do not blame OP either because I would not be ready or willing to handle the situation myself either. Also, children will sense when they know they're not wanted, even if they may not always understand what's going on. It will cause problems as well. Not a-hole. You have chosen the life for you and have made an already generous offer to try and assist. Although your nephew is in a horrible spot here, it doesn't make you responsible for all the bridges your brother has burned or the countless poor decisions made that got them here. I feel for you and your nephew and hope a resolution is reached. The resolution that's going to be reached is that the nephew is screwed. That doesn't make OP an a-hole, but let's not pretend it's going to be rainbows and sunshine for the now effectively orphaned nephew. Honestly, if OP has the money, why not send a kid to a boarding school? It may be cruel, but it seems like the best solution if they don't want a kid themselves. Kid is out of the way for 9 months of the year and only home for the holidays. He's young, but some boarding schools take kids that young in the US.